Okay, hello. It's Paul Green here from the business community. We're doing a business bulletin on just helping people with employment and employee issues. So I've got I guess I was going to say an HR harem here. Is that can I say that?
That's probably the right one.
So I'm joined by Sue Pardy and Nikki, Buckley and Clare Dalziel. They're all experts in their field. They're the HR gurus that are going to sort of share some information with you. We're live broadcasting at the moment. If you're listening to this on a replay, then wherever you're listening, please feel free to put questions in the chat, and we'll come back to them at a later stage if you're not live with us. So I'm going to introduce the first speaker today. So Sue, you're on screen now, and I've just loaded up your presentation. So if you'd like to introduce yourself and share some of your bits and pieces, and then we'll see if there's any questions from the floor, and I've probably got a few questions to ask you. So away you go, Sue.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Paul, and thanks very much for inviting us to be part of this afternoon. What I thought I would share with you this afternoon is some news about the extension to the job retention scheme known as furlough. So there's a lot of things that haven't changed in the scheme, but there are also a lot of things that have changed. So it's important from a point of view of knowing exactly what has changed and hasn't changed, that I can update you. I apologize, that's my dog in the background whining. Hopefully he'll be quiet. Real life, everybody, eh? So Max, be quiet. So the first thing to talk about is that the eligibility criteria has changed. So because the extension happened on the 31st of October, and has been extended to the end of March, it's anybody that's been on your payroll from the 30th of October 2020. So what you must have done is have made a real-time information submission between the dates of 20th of March 2020 and the 30th of October 2020. And basically what that means is if you have an employee who happened to start with you, say on the 15th of October, but you weren't able to make an RTI submission for them, they unfortunately cannot be furloughed. So they're very strict on those dates, and there was dates in the first round of furlough, and these are the dates going forward for this new one. The next thing to say is something that has come as a little bit of a surprise. There's been 3 revisions to the Treasury guidelines already since the announcement of the extension. So people are beavering away, but the latest update is about notice. So previous to this, if you were making people redundant or people were leaving, you could use furlough to claim 80% of their salary during their notice period. From the 1st of December this year, you cannot claim that funding for anybody who is on notice at that point. This is the biggest change because it has a big consequence to funding that you may need to consider within your business. So it's really, really important that if you are considering making redundancies, you now cannot bank on you being able to claim 80% of their salary back from the furlough scheme. Another thing that's going to be happening is that HMRC is going to be publishing the names and company registration numbers, if they have them, of employees claiming under the scheme and the amounts being claimed. These are going to be published on the Government UK website. Now, at the moment, we don't know any more details as to what that might look like and to whether there will be any exceptions. The only exceptions that we might be aware of is if publication may expose the employer, its officers, or employees to serious risk of violence or intimidation. So at the moment, those are the only exceptions to the rule, but at some point soon, HMRC is going to be publishing that information. So there's quite a few differences to this 6 months of the furlough scheme that's been brought in. The final say before we look out look at questions is that the Treasury direction has specifically only applies to the scheme until the end of January. So what is probably going to happen, it's going to be reviewed in January, but what this probably means is that in February and March, contributions may increase a little bit like they did in August, September and October this time around. So keep an eye out for that because your contributions may change and therefore your costs as a business may need to be looked at to, can you actually afford to have people on furlough, or do you need to start making decisions about looking at redundancy situations? That's all I actually wanted to cover from a perspective of the updates. So I'll stop sharing my screen and come back to the front and ask if there's any questions.
I've got some for you, Sue.
Okay.
So, a business might have made someone redundant because they thought the furlough scheme was ending at the end of October. Can they bring them back now and furlough them again?
Yes. So there's a deadline for that, though. So if you made somebody redundant after the 23rd of September 2020, you can take them back on again as long as you made an RTI for them between the 20th of March and the 23rd of September. So furlough gets quite complicated. There's lots of dates for consideration. What you've got to consider, though, is why you might be bringing them back. Would you be making them redundant at a later date? Are you going to give them continuity of service? Do they need to pay any redundancy back? So there's a lot of considerations for you to make. It's not as simple as bringing them back. So what I would suggest always is take advice. So contact myself, Nikki or Claire, if you're in any quandary as to whether the right thing to do. And the other thing to remember, as I've already said, is from the 1st of December, you won't be able to use notice to pay any of the furlough. Sorry, you won't be able to use furlough to pay any of the notice. So if you do bring somebody back, you may actually incur further costs if you then have to make them redundant at a later date. So it's not straightforward, but the answer is yes.
Okay. And is it possible for employees to take holidays whilst they're on furlough?
Absolutely. So there's no change to these rules on holiday. So we would definitely advise you to be encouraging employees to take holiday so they can be booking it up. The end of the year is the most popular holiday year endpoint. So there might be lots of people with a lot of outstanding holiday to take. So I would definitely encourage people. If people still aren't using their holiday up, however, you can enforce people to take holiday. And what you need to do is give them twice as much notice as the amount of holiday that you want them to take. So, for example, if you want them to take 1 day, you need to give them 2 days notice. If you want to take 2 weeks, you would need to give 4 weeks notice, etc. The other consideration is you do need to top up their holiday to 100% of their salary. So it means that you can take 80% via the furlough scheme, but you as a company need to top up that 20%. So again, there's extra costs, but I would definitely encourage people taking holiday.
Okay. I think there used to be a bonus for bringing back furloughed employees. What's happened to that?
Yes, there was. So we didn't know too much about it, but basically at the end of January, before the extension happened, we were going to, anybody brought back and still employed at the end of January would receive £1,000 per employee. That's now been put on hold because obviously the extension to the furlough scheme has overridden that, and that now takes effect until the end of March. So we're still waiting to see if that bonus will still happen, but at a later date, or whether it's disappeared completely. But yes, at the moment, that's on hold.
Okay, and likewise, is that similar with the job support scheme that was going to replace the furlough scheme?
Yeah, so the job support scheme was what was talked about before the extension to the furlough scheme, and that's now on hold. People need to remember, though, that that wasn't as generous as the furlough scheme. So if something does come into play that is like the job support scheme, it's not as generous for both employees and employers. But equally, something else may come along, by the time we get to the end of March anyway. So it might be the same scheme, but in a different form, etc. But it's on hold again.
Okay, so it sounds like it's an ever-changing landscape. So we've set up a page on the Buzzcom site that's sort of shared on your screens at the moment, buzzcom.co.uk/employer. And what we're going to endeavour to do is just sort of keep that updated with information and free guides, support, whatever. So please do keep an eye out on that. And if you're watching this as a recording, you're not live, then if you've got any questions, then just sort of please post them on the comments on whatever platform you're on, and we'll pick those up and get back to you. So I think your work is done here, Sue. Number 1 down, number 2 to go.
Absolutely. So, thank you very much, Paul.
Thank you, Sue. So Claire, I believe you're up next. Let me put you on the main screen. So if you want to introduce yourself and learn us about your area of expertise or the bit you're going to cover today, then please do.
Thank you. So I'm Clare from the HR department, and I'm going to cover employee health and wellbeing. So you've just touched on that we've all been through so much change, and that has an impact on every single individual and in a different way. So poor mental health was already the most common long-term sickness absence in UK workplaces, and we expect that that will probably continue to increase because of everything that we've all been experiencing this year. So there's lots of different ways that employers can support their employees to help them to deal with health and wellbeing. We all know that when different things happen to us in our lives, that we all deal with them in different ways. So some people take everything in their stride, other people take and handle stress in a different way. So it's important that it's so much harder with lots of remote working that we keep an eye on our employees and continue to look after their well-being.
Okay. Do you want me to ask you a few questions? Would you like that?
You can do.
Okay. So when you say employee health and well-being, what do you mean by that?
So the same as we all look after our own health and well-being in everyday life, I suppose. It's such a huge topic. And as I said, everybody deals with it in a different way. But your business performs better if your employees feel motivated, which is a very difficult thing for everybody in everyday life at the moment. And the same in business. So one of the key things that gets mentioned at the moment to me is, well, there's no buzz even when people are in the workplace. And a lot of that's because people don't have anything to talk about. We don't have anything going on in our lives. We don't talk about holidays that we've got to look forward to, because most of us don't have any to look forward to. But one of the key things I think captures a lot of it, there's a lot of C's here. So we've talked about change, but communication. So communication is absolutely key, and making sure that you've got open communication and not all negative, and being as honest as you possibly can. Another one is connection. So trying to keep everyone connected, which is much more difficult, as I said, with a lot more remote working. Care. So looking out for those signs of stress, so changes in people's behaviour that's perhaps unusual, and people that don't normally get affected by stress are also being affected by stress in this current situation. And the fourth C is consideration. So we all know that we probably spend most of our lives at the moment staring at a screen of some kind, whether that be on a video like this, or working in front of a computer, or most people in the evening will probably spend some time staring at a television.
Okay. And what support can you provide employees for their well-being?
So there's lots of different ways. So the most common is probably an employee assistance program. So somebody outside of the organisation that people feel they can talk to honestly if they're struggling. There's still a lot of stigma, unfortunately, around mental health. And so lots of employees don't necessarily tell their employer if there is a problem. There's occupational health, so you can send someone for an occupational health assessment if you feel that they are struggling in a particular way. Something that's becoming more common in business is training people to be mental health first aiders, so that they're trained to look out for the signs and then be able to provide the support. And then you can do lots of things that perhaps people don't necessarily think of support. So you might be upskilling people. So even while people are furloughed, they can still do training. So you offer them training and upskill. And then there's lots of new ideas that have been being introduced. So yoga, massage when they were in the workplace and allowed. But just thinking outside the box and just trying to provide a bit of variety, as most of us don't have very much going on in our own lives at the moment.
No, absolutely. And I think that is having an impact on, you know, people's mental well-being, isn't it? You know, I've heard stories of, well, two ways, really. People that have been used to working at home are reluctant to come back into the workplace because they've got so used to that. And also people that, you know, might live in a small single bed flat getting stressed out because, you know, they've just got the four walls they live into and they're now working in it. It has a lot of implications. So are there any other things that you think will have changed that will impact employees' well-being?
Yeah, I think there's a few. I think there will continue to be a better awareness of mental health, which has obviously been something that has been increasing over time. I think there will be a lot more people that want a better work-life balance. So there's likely to be, I think, a lot more hybrid models perhaps in business and not just everybody in the office every day. So perhaps a lot more flexible working requests. And I think a lot of people's priorities will have changed. So I think there will be a lot more demands on businesses for different things that employees have now realised perhaps are more important to them.
So one question from me, are there any other key things that you know, we should consider with regards to the well-being of employees?
So I think there's probably 5 key things that we can all take away. One is stay connected. So make sure you're talking to each other and you're talking to somebody, and don't be afraid to say if you're struggling, because it's important that somebody knows so that they can try and help you. To stay active. So staying active gives you a sharper memory and helps with your thoughts. So it can also help how you feel. Take notice. So remember the simple things that we sometimes all forget that are important to us but are still there, and give us joy. So important every day to think of something that happened, and most people can think of something even though we're not doing a lot. To keep learning, so embrace new experiences and opportunities, so keep your mind active, and to give, whether that's your time, words, or just your presence for someone, to be there to listen if they're struggling.
Okay, thank you very much, Claire. As I said before, if you're watching this on a replay, then please do put your questions in the comments on whatever platform you're on. There's a few people out there. I'll just share a few comments. There's Mark, I think he's referring to what you were saying, Sue, with all the ever-changing legislation, and a little comment from Val. So far, so good. There's a few people tuning in. So your work is done here, Claire. So it's number 3 now into the fray. So Nikki, would you like to introduce yourself and let us know what you're going to be talking about? Ooh,
Thank you, Paul. Yes, I will. My name's Nicky. And I'm East Midlands HR Limited. So I'm going to talk to you about remote working. So importantly, how you manage remote teams to be still, you want to still have the productivity and the performance from your team. So it's really important. To shape myself, we could have had the top 10 countdown for those people of a certain age that remember top 10 on a Sunday night and recording it with a tape recorder, but that really is showing my age, I'm afraid. So we'll start at number 1 and go reverse way. So the first thing I think you need to do is you need to agree the ways of working. So if you've got a team, you need to be clear about how you're going to work together. Different, even just doing not having a normal coffee chat on it where you go and making your cup of tea or go and getting a water and having all your water that you would have during the day, or talking to somebody in an elevator upstairs is very different. So you need to agree how you're going to keep each other updated and what the frequency, and I think frequency is really important. You may need to identify teams who wants more frequent meetings than other people. We've all got lots of different personalities, and that's really important. Number 2, show the big picture, but you've got 3 people on this. You've got to remind your team about what your overall objective is. You're still there to do a job for the business and add value to that business. But look at the short-term goals regularly and adjust these goals that keep changing as soon as with the furlough, things do change very, very quickly. And some of your team may not be able to carry out the tasks that they used to do. They may used to be able to do morning reports and various things like that. And maybe now with childcare, their circumstances have changed, so their hours have changed. So you need to be prepared to listen to people and work together with your team. And number 3, set expectations, but trust your team. And again, the word trust is really, really important. Be very clear about the team, about the mutual expectations that you want for them, but you've got to trust them to get on with it. It's very difficult to micromanage people. Some people like to do that. Some people don't like that at all. Most people don't. And again, it's very in a remote work world if somebody on Teams or on Zoom or something all the time. So it's very difficult and can become a bit of, your employees may feel that you don't trust them to get on with their work. At number 4, make sure the team members have the support and equipment they need. So again, make sure that they've got the right equipment. It may just be they're used to using their dining room chair, as some people do. They may have to go in the office and get the chair that they would have used, or have the right facility. Make sure they've got the internet that's good and secure, which I hope mine is at the moment. It does look like it might be going a bit wonky, but hopefully it's okay. The whole desk situation, where are they actually working from, and can they be productive from their home workplace? 5, we've mentioned this a bit earlier before, but agree the regularity team meetings. So before you would have had regular team meetings, well, hope would have done. So again, you need to agree how those are going to happen and what the regularity of those are. It's essential for keeping connected. It also helps with the well-being, as Claire alluded to as well. And it's also a way to check in on each other and make sure that the workflow is on track, and that if needed, other people can help other colleagues that are maybe not able to do the work that they need to do. Moving on, number 6, keep them of regular one-to-ones and team meetings. Now, I'm a big advocate of one-to-ones because I think it's really important that you have that time with your manager, and it's really encourage people to do. And even as an employee, you are an employee watching this TV screen, then it's important to ask you can ask your manager for a one-to-one so that you can get things clear and know what's expected from you. But it maintains a sense of structure, and it gives you an opportunity to have that good communication. Share and encourage your team the same. So again, we spoke about the water cooler moments. There's sometimes an opportunity where you would just mention something in passing, or say, oh, I've done this morning, or that. Maybe those could be like your 5-minute openers at your regular team meetings that you're going to have to make sure everybody's got an opportunity to keep each other updated. Tailor your feedback and communications. So again, with the well-being, some people may be feeling actually feeling very, very isolated, especially if you're on their own, they don't see anybody else apart from through the team meetings. So you need to take this into account when you're talking, or even with your emails that you're sending to them. Communicate regularly, but not just when things go wrong. And sometimes, you know what, maybe you need to go back to the old-fashioned way of just picking up the phone. We kind of forgot about the phone sometimes, and I think that's a key way to get back in communicating with people. Listen closely to your team and read between the lines. So although you're not in the same room, you don't have the extra information from people's body language or tone to get the sense of what people are thinking or feeling. particularly in more difficult. So you've really got to listen and ask questions that will help you to do that. And lastly, at number 10, help the foster relationships and the well-being. So make time for the social conversations. So just ask them, okay, yeah, we all know we're not going shopping and buying lots of things, but actually we might be, because lots of people doing online shopping. I'm very surprised the ring doorbell hasn't gone today and the dog's not started barking, because they normally something happens as soon as I go onto it. As any other sort of call, something happens, and hopefully that happens. But yes, I know from my own opinion, I've been ordered a lot online, so I'm still doing the shopping. So it's quite nice to just chat about the general things, see what people are doing and what kind of exciting things they are buying. So that's it. That's 10 for managing remote teams.
Thanks, Nikki. You're not alone remembering the Sunday chart countdown. Mark's there as well, and I remember it. So,
I didn't think I would be on my own with that one, to be honest.
So are there any legal issues with people working from home?
Yes, there are, Paul, because obviously you're changing the work location. So you need to look at either having a remote working policy, but you're also doing a variation to contract. So you need to maybe make sure you have that communication with the people and get that all in place. There's lots of home working policies out there at the moment, and they can just cover the coronavirus because it is exceptional circumstances. So it's really key to have those in place. Also with health and safety, it's kind of touched on it before with your desk space, your base, the DSE equipment, so display screen. You should get your employees to do an assessment to make sure they are safe and using their equipment correctly.
Okay, great. If someone thinks one of the team is working and not taking breaks, what can they do about that?
I'd encourage you to, so the manager needs to speak to that person, find out what's happening. There's, I think what I'm finding is there's a lot of people that think, oh, I'm not doing the commute to work, so I need to log on as at the time I would commute to work and log off at the time I would get home from work. But you are, the hours that you need to do. Yes, there is flex to do extra where and when needed, but it's to make sure that people aren't doing extra hours, because this is when your burnout could come in, and you really need to look at the stress and the work and the workplace and the workload that these people could be feeling. So try and help those people and find out why they feel they should do too many hours. They may want to just a couple of hours back or a lunch break, go out and get that walk in the midday and get some fresh air and try and stretch the legs so that they are moving around.
Okay. And things are a bit limited at the moment, but are there things to be arranged to help boost team building?
Yes, but again, I'm trying not to be too, from a manager point of view, it's really important that you get the team to come up with the idea. So I'd really encourage, if you are thinking of a team builder, to say, I might want to do bingo or something like that, but that might not be what the team wants. So get the team to come up with ideas, get them about what they want to do as team building exercise. But there's lots of things you could do, from quizzes, bingo, some fun facts about each other, or even like introduce your pets or something like that.
Okay, that's excellent. I've got no more questions for you now. So just to give you a little bit of feedback, so you know that your stuff is being gratefully received from our viewers and listeners or watchers, whatever. So yeah, a hell of a lot of stuff there, I think, guys. So thanks for that. Is there anything else that any of you want to add before we wrap this up?
I'd just like to say that as a business owner, there is lots of help and support out there. Don't take it all on yourself. You've got to look after yourself as well as your employees. So make sure you are looking after yourself and take advice. Come and talk to us, talk to your accountant, talk to whoever you need to. But there's lots of help and support out there. Don't try to do it all yourself.
Nikki, Claire, anything else from you guys?
really just to emphasise what Sue said, there is lots of support. I think it's really important. I know for my own well-being, I'm trying to do a bit more of a activity throughout the midday type. Poor dogs keep going for another walk. Luckily, I've got a few dogs, so I can take a different dog for a walk, probably about 4 times a day now. But the cat doesn't want to go, so yeah, I can. So it's just really is looking after, keep and moving around, because it is so easy. And I know myself, we can log on and you can still be there 6, 7 o'clock at night, but you need to have that break.
Okay. Anything from you, Claire?
No, just everything that Sue and Nikki said, you know, be disciplined and don't think you have to work all the time just because we've got nothing else going on in our lives.
Okay.
So it's still important to have that balance.
Well, I think we'll wrap it up there then. I mean, thanks for coming on today. I know in the nature of the industry you're in that you're very busy people anyway, given all the legislative stuff you've got to sort out and the ever-changing goalposts. So I do appreciate that. And it's nice to sort of that you've all come together. So seemingly competing businesses, you know, I appreciate that you're all sort of like coming together and contributing and just helping out, you know, people out there with all this stuff going on. So thanks again. I'm going to end the broadcast now.